Hello and welcome to Behind the Lines. I'm Diane Dayton. Today we're going to talk about a very important topic with people that are not strangers to our set here and to the channel at all. We're going to talk about mental health, Mental Health America Lancaster and Lebanon Counties. And with us, we have Kim McDevitt, your Executive Director. Thank you for being back.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And Megan Beyerle, welcome back too. You are Education Coordinator.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Diane.
Absolutely. We have to keep the conversation going.
We sure do.
That's why we are here. So for those who are still trying to figure out some things, what you do, and the whole mental health system, let's break some things down and educate and give information today. So what is the mission of MHA?
So MHA's mission is to promote optimal mental health through education, advocacy, and support. And what does that look like for MHA in our community? So we identify gaps in services through, trying to connect folks to services, trying to educate the community, but also provide like a holistic approach to mental health through that continuum of care. From wellness to treatment. And so we navigate, we walk alongside individuals, and we make sure that no one falls through the cracks.
And that's what's so important. And this is your 70th year of being around and doing what you do. Megan, you get so involved with a lot of the education and that sort of thing. Let's start to address some of that, how that comes into play.
Sure, yeah. So with education, we educate across the life cycle. We educate in schools, from elementary school all the way up through high school. We educate in colleges, other nonprofits, businesses, faith communities, senior centers, the list goes on and on. We have a variety of more awareness-based, evidence-informed trainings that we can offer. We do have a few evidence-based trainings as well. Really, our ultimate goal with all of our education is just to get people comfortable talking about mental health, connecting to resources again, and reducing that stigma, which goes along with the being comfortable speaking about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was going to add to the education piece. People might be experiencing symptoms but not understanding the symptoms, or they might be recognizing symptoms in a loved one and they're not sure what's happening. They're not sure if it's behavioral or mental health related. And so that's why education is so important. We're saving lives through education.
And this is ongoing.
Ongoing.
And I think what's great about what you do is that you're open to present anywhere, aren't you, as far as giving information? True?
Yes, absolutely. And, back to the school education, we do educate educators, so teachers, other individuals that work within the school system. We educate parents, guardians, caregivers. We have started doing mental health and student athlete educations, educational sessions. We realize, where the gaps are, meeting the community need, and we're really able to pivot, to be able to speak about almost anything, as it relates to mental health. And this is ongoing. We can do this anywhere, and we have.
And to connect with you, we want to send them to the website, right?
Yes, it's mhalancaster.org.
Okay.
And again, to follow up on what Megan shared, I think it's important that people realize that we provide, as a nonprofit, we provide programming and services that others may not, because it's not a billable service. There are many providers that can't see someone walk through a system because it's just so time consuming and so involved. And that's the work we do, or provide education.
Right.
And
you connect people with where they need to go. Right.
Yes, that's one very small piece of, or big piece of what we do.
Okay.
So, the mental health system is so complicated. Yeah. And when someone's experiencing mental health challenges, struggles, they're given a phone number, they call that number, they may not get an answer. If they do, it might not be the right place. So they give up after that first call. And so calling us, we will walk alongside them as they connect to the services that they need.
Okay. So we talked about you being a first stop for a lot of this, right?
Yes, that's right. If it's not clinical. So
Okay.
if you need a therapist, you can call us if you aren't sure which therapist. But if you know, the therapist you'd
Right.
like to see, of course, you make the direct call. We don't need to be
Absolutely.
involved in that. We're a crisis.
Yes.
We are not a crisis center. So if anyone's experiencing a crisis,
Right.
we refer them to 988.
Right. Which is the counterpart to what
911.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
so 988 is the mental health
Yeah.
number.
Yeah. We often talk about the stigma, and we just started to say that we are getting better at that because we're talking about it, right? I mean, it's a generational thing too, right, Kim?
It is. So since COVID, if anything good came out of COVID, it was that. It brought mental health to the forefront of people's minds. People started talking about mental health. People were experiencing a lot of challenges at that time. And so we normalized the conversation, right? So
Yeah.
at no other time in history did we accelerate the reduction of stigma as we did at that point in time. And so here we are, and we're still talking about it. The services have not caught up. That's something that we advocate for, more services. But we really, people, are more comfortable talking about their mental health.
Yeah.
And also, when we talk about generational differences, I'm a parent of 4 children. My children are adult children. And we talked about mental health. It's that shift in culture, right? My parents never talked about it.
Right.
We talked about it in our home. And now my children are able to identify and this generation, and now my grandchildren are being taught how to self-regulate, through blowing bubbles. My family's just an example of many families that are doing that.
Okay, you've got to explain a little bit more about self-regulate, blowing
Blowing
'cause I think
bubbles.
people are going, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we look at tantruming,
right.
or a child, so they're not able to self-regulate. They're not able to bring themselves back to out of that tantrum, if you will, right? And so
So you do what?
Yeah.
So with self-regulation, it's
Yeah,
you're
so
bringing
you educate
yourself-
on this, yes.
Yeah, you're bringing yourself
Yes.
back down
Yes.
to an alignment, like a
Right.
state of alignment, like the heightened stress response, where your brain, it's proven neurologically, is not communicating properly. So regulation is trying to get everything back aligned.
So one method in
Okay.
doing that is blowing bubbles for young children,
Really?
right? Yes. And so we see a younger generation of parents teaching that technique
Yes.
to their children. And so we teach these coping, these strategies. So blowing bubbles helps them rebalance.
Okay, so getting that little bubble thing and just
Yeah.
blowing it?
Yep, that's one example
There's a
of
lot
many
of power.
strategies.
A lot of
yeah.
power in breathing. They're breathing, trigger points, even certain repetitive motions that one might do. One of our colleagues just actually taught me, even just rubbing your hands together.
Oh, really?
Can
Okay,
be a
just-
way to regulate.
just doing
and
that.
regulation really just goes back to, it's calming your nerves.
Yeah.
If it's calming your amygdala, essentially.
Right.
It's that's really what it is. And you can also co-regulate. So, if you're with your child, your grandchild, and, they're tantruming or in a heightened, stress state, and then if you're calm, that can also help bring them to a calm state, as opposed to the opposite as well.
Boy, that's so important, isn't it? And these are things that you talk about when you go out and educate.
Yeah,
different groups.
absolutely.
You have different specific talks you do? Do you tailor make to what the situation is? Or?
Yeah, so both. So to start with, one of our, it's an evidence-based training that we offer. It's called QPR, and it's a suicide prevention technique. Evidence-based, sounds what it is. A lot of data and goes into it, and that is purposely designed to sound like CPR. You're not training someone to be a counselor. You're training them to recognize signs and symptoms and to be able to help someone in crisis until a physician could get involved. And then other than that, we have they're called mental health and you. How does mental health apply to you and your circumstances?
Yes.
Lots of, again, kind of recognizing what's happening in the brain and the body. What does stress feel like? What are some things that help relieve stress? We can see how that, can change as one, ages. Let's see here. We've done bullying awareness. We do various trainings, like Act 55 regulated within school systems. We have resiliency, self-care, and compassion fatigue. The list goes on and on, but we also can tailor trainings. We've done trainings on boundaries and healthy relationships. At the end of the day, a lot of the topics, there is just inherent overlap anyway. So it can be pretty easy to, again, meet that community need.
Yeah. Wow, you do so much, and this is amazing. We've got more to talk about. We're going to talk about possibly some red flags and also some partnerships. So stay with us. We're talking about mental health. It's so important. Welcome back to Behind the Lines. We're talking about our mental health with Mental Heath America, Lancaster, Lebanon Counties. Kim and Megan, we're back. So if we know someone that may have a mental health issue, how do we go about helping them?
Sure. Yes. So first off, we always say this, whether we're out supporting the community, providing education, or in advocacy work, treat it seriously, whether it's with another individual or even potentially themselves, and that help is available. There are resources available. Oftentimes we start with those words. Connecting to a big one that's easy to remember is texting or calling 988.
Right.
Nice thing about 988 is even if one is unsure, 988, there is a crisis counselor who can assist.
Okay.
Recognizing signs and symptoms a little bit, which goes back to, and this is any age, any environment, physical changes, mood, behavior, anything off of one's baseline. Going a little bit further, recognizing context of a situation as well. The more, off one's baseline that one might recognize, the more, likely that someone just needs a little bit extra help. Of course, I mentioned that QPR training. We can go a little bit deeper with really how to help someone, but I'd say as soon as possible, connecting them to that 988 number.
Yeah. How do we stay mentally healthy? What do we do?
Yeah, that's a great question.
How do we help ourselves? How do we help others?
So another thing with that is, just recognizing that everyone, does at times have their struggles. Kim mentioned earlier, since COVID. So since COVID, 1 in 4 adults admit to struggling with their mental health. I say admit to because chances are when we're looking at data as it pertains to mental health, suicide numbers, things like that, the data is actually underreported, chances are.
Wow.
Knowing that if you're in a room, we just did a training yesterday with about 75 people. If it's 1 in 4, we're testing my math at this hour, but, that's probably about 20 people that, are struggling. Recognizing that shared humanity, recognizing that we can't see it, oftentimes just like we can with physical health, and just trying to, again, be open, try to, as far as helping oneself, hoping, tapping into things that one enjoys.
Yes.
Self-care is critical, whatever that looks like for someone, if there's someone that needs rest or needs more, just doing anything to kind of break up. I think we mentioned earlier that stress response, that amygdala, being in a heightened anxiety state. So, self-care and finding joy even in small moments.
And I think self-care also involves that eating well.
Yes.
Getting rest.
Yes.
Getting exercise and having a good support group with
Yes.
you of friends that are uplifting and don't tear you down.
Yes.
So that's a good way to kind of overall help with that.
Yeah, and that's
isn't
for
it?
wellness, but we also work with those who have severe mental illness
yeah.
and those that have chronic mental illness. So we offer support groups.
Yes.
We offer the Peer Friendship Program where someone is paired with a volunteer
Yeah.
and they get 4 hours of a gift of friendship, so to speak, with an individual. They, have activities. And so when you're connected to Mental Health America, even with your first call, you are connected to MHA. You'll get that personal, connection immediately. And because we have 12 programs, you can have your needs met within one of the service areas.
Yeah, it's very holistic. I know we have shows that we're airing here at the station, Mental Health Now, and
Yes.
some of those topics we got into
Yes.
was student mental health, aging, men, women, workplace, veterans, firearms, suicide. It's almost endless, isn't it?
It is, yes. Mental health is so vast, right? And when we look at that continuum, or that spectrum, mental wellness is the preventive, early intervention.
Yeah.
Well, and then we go into early intervention and then treatment. And mental health is treatable.
Yes.
It is treatable. But we want to focus over here, right? So we want to focus on the early intervention and prevention because treatment's a lot more difficult and a lot more expensive.
Right. And I know one of the things we had talked about too are these relationships and partnerships that you have, like with the police and educating when there's a situation that arises, right?
Yes, so there's a program in Lancaster County, CIT, and they train the police. It's a 1-week training, and that is a training run by the county, and they teach the officers on how to address mental health situations in the field. But we have school partners, we have nonprofit partners.
Right.
We feel that we not only represent and should support the individuals, but everyone is involved in the mental health systems, whether providers or agencies, because the better they are,
Yep.
the better our individuals are in our county. So partnerships are very, very important to MHA.
It's all connected, isn't it? And we all have to work together to have a healthy community.
It's way too big otherwise, right? And no one agency can do it.
overwhelming, yeah.
But we are so fortunate. We have great supporters, our donors, and companies and individuals, and even our partner agencies support MHA so that we can continue to address folks before it hits crisis.
Yeah, that's so key, isn't it, Megan?
Yes, absolutely. It's everything. And I'd say those partnerships and just the community that we get to connect to at large, I think are many of our favorite parts of it,
Yes,
honestly.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if we go to mhalancaster.org, that's the website. Tell me what we're going to see there and how to navigate that.
Sure, yeah. So we are regularly updating the website.
Okay.
MHAlancaster.org will bring you to our homepage. There is so much. There is going to be a calendar, a community calendar of events. There's going to be a ticker that may show other, pertinent events happening. We've recently had our Noodles fundraiser event. So that was, up there. There will be information about the trainings we offer, about our advocacy support groups and the schedule, how to get involved if one wants to be a volunteer. There's a mental health screening on there. There is, it's countless. There's a
Resources,
Yes, a
articles,
library, yep.
journals.
Yeah.
We have 3 sections: education,
Yep.
advocacy, and support.
Okay.
So you can click on one of those sections and see what programming is related to each of those areas. We have all of our programs, as Megan shared, and resources, so, and we're constantly updating it. Eventually,
good.
our goal is to have a provider database,
wow.
a directory.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if someone's watching, they're thinking, I'd like to help volunteer. What does volunteering with MHA look like?
Sure. So there's a couple of different ways that one could volunteer. One could volunteer to be a compeer friend. So Kim had mentioned the compeer program. Someone in a varying state of mental health, like a recovery, gets matched with a volunteer friend. We've had a friendship that has been over 23 years in this program. So the idea that mental health doesn't happen, or doesn't thrive in isolation. Also, we have community table events that someone could help us with volunteering. Items around the office. We have countless ways.
Administrative support at the office.
That's good. Oh,
and,
wow, okay.
And peer support groups too.
Okay.
So we're always looking for strong, leaders in the support groups that have lived experience.
Yeah. So we know that you're a 501c3, you're a nonprofit,
We are,
right?
yes.
So funds are also important. So
They are.
Kim, address any other ways that we can help?
Yeah, so we really appreciate this. The success of MHA has been because of our Lancaster community, and we do depend on individuals, businesses, and countless of other entities, churches. Church support, we have a faith community partnership program that's solely supported through donations. So we really do depend on our donations. We actually continue to grow, and so the needs keep growing as well. So we want to go an additional 70 years, right? So
exactly.
So
we can check in with you and find out how we can help and what's going on.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like there is so much available on that website. And once again, we're going to tell you it is MHALancaster.org.
Yes.
And then there's also the 988 number. You can text or call that, correct?
Yes.
And that's the emergency
that's
type of number,
that's right. That's the emergency number, and you'll talk to a peer counselor when you call 988. And then our telephone number is 717-397-7461.
Thank you so much for being here today and for sharing these thoughts about mental health and kind of bringing it together and kind of making sense to how we can make a difference. And once again, we want to keep the conversation going.
Yes.
So let's keep talking about mental health because it is important. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Diane.
And thank you for joining us today, too. I'm Diane Dayton with Behind the Lines, reminding you to look behind the lines. You might be surprised what you find.